This channel is supported by TrueFire. TrueFire is an online library of lessons from some of my favourite players. There's thousands of lessons on there. You can use the promo code JNC40 to get 40% off of any of their courses. Before I did a video on some serious alternatives to the Fender Strat, I kind of was thinking, well, why don't I have any Fender guitars? So I wanted to do a video on that first because it felt a bit mean to be just doing a video about what you should buy instead of a Fender Strat without kind of talking about some of the Fenders that I really like, maybe figuring out in a video form why I don't have any. Anyway. I think it was the Fender Deluxe. My buddy at uni had like the Fender Deluxe where it had the anodized gold plate, and that was kind of what got me into this idea of maybe owning a Fender type guitar or an S-type guitar. Before that I was playing like Music Man guitars, and before that Ibanez. I think it must have been probably like Eric Johnson that kind of made me start thinking again like, well actually maybe a Strat is a thing that would work for me. I bought a G&L Legacy, a white one, which had like a really chunky neck, but this was at a time when you could import guitars from America for a pretty decent price. I think it was Victor Lens or something like that. I got it from some unnecessary detail there. For my band that I was playing at that time, it was a band called Ceasefire, who had supported like Bastille and I think London Grammar and people like that. So they were quite, you know, on the up, and I kind of joined and made sure it fully tanked. The manager said like you need a black guitar because the band tended to wear black, and I found a Fender Roadworn 50s, you know, like the black Strat. That actually I really like that guitar, playing it live at least. At home I had other guitars that I preferred to play. There's maybe one of the guitars that I regret selling, but there aren't that many of them. Anyway, so that was kind of my first Fender guitar. Other ones that I've owned that are notable, I had a Fender Tele, maybe that's the one that came from Victor Lens, but I had like the Fender Nashville type where it had like a middle pickup, and that was a vintage hot rod. I sold that one, then bought it back many years later, and actually found that I kind of made the right decision first time, because it ended up being quite a lot heavier than I remembered and just didn't actually vibe with it as much as I thought I had. I tend to play Strat copies though, like K-Line Springfields are definitely heavily inspired by the Fender Strat, so is PRS. So my favourite guitars that come to mind for this video, there's a Telecaster that my buddy Jake owned, and this was an awesome like custom shop. He ended up trading it, I think, can't remember what for, but this was a really nice guitar and looked really pretty. It was a little bit on the heavier side, had a really chunky neck, sort of that no-caster type vibe. That one was awesome. My buddy Tony up the road has an Eric Johnson Strat, white one, from like the early 2000s, I think. This one is really lightweight, but also because it's kind of Tony's main guitar, has some really amazing sort of relicking and checking starting to happen, and it looks incredible, I think. And that guitar plays really well as well. I like the Eric Johnson Strat for a few things. I think the pickups in there sound really good. The neck is pretty chunky, but has like a flatter radius for an older style Strat guitar. And they used to be pretty lightweight. That used to be part of the spec, that they would, you know, be lightweight guitars. That seems to have changed a little bit over time, and now the weights seem to be creeping up a little bit. I don't know whether that's because Fender are making more guitars with heavier wood. I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, the Fender Eric Johnson I think is a little bit of a sleeper in that range of guitars around sort of £2,000. I think that one's a pretty decent, really decent actually, to be fair, Strat. If there was one Fender Strat that I was going to own, that might be one. I also had a hollow body version of one of them, and I sort of do regret selling that one in some ways, because that was a really, really pretty cool guitar and nice and lightweight. Had something different about it, do you know what I mean? Another one that I really like is my buddy Jake's blue Strat. So this is like a 61, I think, Custom Shop. Before they started doing like the Journeyman and stuff like that, it used to be that the Custom Shop stuff had like less layers to it. But this one is his main Strat, and it's been his main Strat for about 10 years. Really beautiful, lightweight, or fairly lightweight. He's got Ron Ellis pickups in it, I think. Sounds great when he plays it. I've played it a few times. It is a really, really sweet guitar. I did have a red Fender Custom Shop that I bought after my first couple of K-lines, and I didn't really feel like it did as much for me as the K-lines. And at the same time, I think I borrowed a Silver Sky off of Dave from up the road, and that was kind of what opened my eyes to, actually, I think this Silver Sky thing is pretty sweet and works really nicely for me. Those are my favourite Fender guitars that I can remember, and if there was one Fender guitar out of all of those that I would play, and I think it would be a Fender Eric Johnson. I don't know if you guys have any other favourite kind of Fender guitars. It does feel a little bit wrong, I have to tell you, like being a guitarist who's into like some of the old stuff, into Eric Johnson and stuff like that, and not playing Fender guitars like ever. I do play Fender amps. I've got a Fender Pro Reverb and a Fender Deluxe Reverb, so those are nice, and I think I was late to the party on those as well. But it seems to me like quite a lot of the more modern Fender stuff is not really catered to that much of what I'm into. The reason I like things like K-lines and PRS Silver Skies, that some of the features like hark back to the vintage stuff. So like a vintage Radius Strat, but well-made guitar, lightweight, is really a nice thing for me. K-lines have a 10-inch radius, which is a bit closer to like the Fender Custom Shop or more modern stuff. But things like the Ultra Strats and the things that are more super Stratty to me, I'm not that interested in. And those seem to be a little bit a big part of the Fender focus, right? They have like three things going on. You either have a reissue, like a more modern thing, or a totally different thing. It's only really the reissues for some reason that I'm particularly interested in. I don't know if anyone else is the same. But anyway, I wanted to do that video sort of talking about some of my favourite Fender guitars over the years. They did send me an American Vintage reissue 2, that surf green thing, which I think looked really pretty. And I think Fender guitars sound the most like Fender guitars. I don't know what it is about that, but that to me has really been a thing. Like if it said Fender on the headstock, even if it was like a just off of the wall in a pub somewhere, when you plugged it in and played it, it did really have a Fender sound. And I don't know what that is, because you could put Fender style pickups in any guitar, presumably get somewhere similar, but I don't know if you guys have felt that as an experience where something that actually said Fender on the headstock sounded more like a Fender to you when you played it. I don't know if that's the same for any of you guys. The G&L I never really thought sounded as Stratty as my mate's Fender Strat. You know, sometimes the K-lines I don't think sound as Stratty as a Fender Strat, like that 50s American Vintage reissue. And the Silver Sky, again, certainly doesn't sound as Stratty as a Strat. So, I don't know, is there something to that? Let me know your thoughts in the comments.